Cool. Ikemesit, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, very good. Look, if you don't mind just introducing the viewers to who you are. So you're actually based in Nigeria. So we're having this conversation across borders, which I find pretty cool. But yeah, if you can just introduce the viewers to obviously who you are and I guess what you do.
Great. Thanks for having me again, Rian. My name is Ikemesit Effiong. I'm a lawyer, and I'm currently head of research at SBM Intelligence, which is like a risk consultancy. So we provide a lot of market intelligence and geopolitical risk analysis advice for clients, centered on Nigeria and sort of West Africa in general. So apart from the everyday stresses of being Nigerian and living in Nigeria, I actually get to watch like a lot of Nigerian and West African developments for clients.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize you were a lawyer, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't come through. I know, right?
How long have you been practicing law?
About 9 years now.
Wow. And
Yeah.
obviously, I can imagine that keeps you quite busy.
Very much so. I mean, Nigeria is it's a developing market, it's a growth market, and so there's a lot happening. We tend to have very heavy news and regulatory days down here, just because there are so many things that are set in stone, and regulators down here are sort of finding their feet in terms of making sense of things that might be a bit more settled, in other parts of the world. So yeah, it's really engaging, right, to be a lawyer in a market like this.
Yeah, I could imagine. Um, what's your Bitcoin story? I know that we've obviously had a chat a little bit about this on the WhatsApp, but yeah, what's your Bitcoin story? How did you get involved in Bitcoin?
So for me personally, it started as a bit of a curiosity about I think about 6 years ago, thereabouts. So I mean, well, I've always been watching, right, in the international news media, the developments around cryptocurrencies in general, and especially around Bitcoin. And I had a friend who was in Scandinavia, right, at the time, who I kind of had a chat with about it, and he was sort of like an early mover, right, into crypto. Um, and so while I didn't do it directly, right, I gave him the green light to sort of trade and mine for me, and I was always keeping tabs with him and checking with him. So that was kind of like my personal experience. It's atypical, right, for the average Nigerian, because like within the last 2 3 years, Bitcoin has really exploded, right here. As sort of the leading edge of sort of other forms of crypto, um, largely for economic reasons. So as Nigeria's economic prospects have somewhat dwindled, right? People are looking for alternative means to to park their investments, or to send and move money across borders, right? And because the international money transfer, and remittance system, right, that serves West Africa, is very inefficient. It's actually more expensive to send money to West Africa than any part of the world, right? So people are always looking for workarounds and go arounds to ensure that as much of what they send, say from Europe and North America, which have the largest Nigerian diasporas, right, get to their families down here, and in exploring, right, that um, sort of in exploring that experience of the best way to park, to transfer money, quite a lot number of Nigerians have gone into Bitcoin. So I mean, this thing, which was a curiosity for just like a bunch of enthusiasts down here, it's fast becoming an economic necessity, considering all that we are dealing with. And so I think I've talked about my experience as well, like Nigerians because experiencing one, yeah, but just wanted to highlight that distinction. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the kind of personally for me, and like generally how a lot of my countrymen use Bitcoin now. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bitcoin is actually very popular in Nigeria at the moment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it has the look and the feel of sort of like a saturation market, right, at this point, because everyone's talking about Bitcoin. People are talking about the most efficient way to invest. I can't count the number of times I'd get messages on my WhatsApp talking about trying this alternative, almost mythical miracle, sort of investment vehicle. I think I woke up to one this morning, so it's typical for me to get like one every couple of days, right? So yeah, it is quite popular here. Especially like among like younger middle-aged Nigerians who are kind of worried about where this country's economic prospects are heading, right? And they're looking to either leave the country or just get money out of the country to invest in sort of more safer economic environment. And Bitcoin has been very helpful, kind of in that regard. I think we are, on any given year, we're either the third or the fourth, right, most popular Bitcoin market, right, in the country. And that's been the case for like 3-4 years now. So yeah, Bitcoin is huge, right?
Yeah.
Down here, it's really, really
And so,
big.
so people are obviously using it to, like you were saying before, people are kind of using it to like store some wealth. I understand the Nigerian naira is, so it's on some form of like an inflationary tract, unfortunately. So I'm presuming the naira itself is hard to try and park some wealth in. So people are using it as a store of value, and they're also using it to pay for stuff with as well.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I mean, inflation in Nigeria is constantly eating at the naira. I think the latest numbers from last week had it at 17% odd, right? And that's been the case month on month, right? So we inflation is generally like within a 14 to 17% track monthly. That's very unsustainable from sort of like a wealth creation investment perspective. And people are constantly looking for ways to save up their money. Now, what would be the case in sort of like a typical market is people would just people would park their resources in foreign currency. But Nigeria has a foreign currency shortage, right? So Nigerians generally love the dollar, and the pound, because we sort of have more interactions with the US and the UK as against Australia, for example. And I think we should look down on that, right, a bit more. But getting access to foreign currency is tightly regulated by the financial regulator down here, the central bank. And so for many Nigerian businesses, of all sizes, small, medium, large, as well as the retail market. So people who are looking for foreign currency to pay for school, to book a flight ticket, to pay for a vacation, right, or to just buy stuff outside the country. It's really, really difficult, right, getting access to dollars and pounds, even when you have the naira, right, to buy it, right. And and for those who have access to it, there's a multiplicity of exchange rates, right? So the naira goes for about 360, right, naira to the dollar, right, in sort of like the official what we call here in Nigeria the interbank market, right? Yeah, but that number is at about 470, right, in the black market. And so for lots of people who have dollars and want to sell, I mean, they're not going to take their money to the official market. They're obviously going to try and get as much naira as they can for for the currency that they have. So you've got a combination of like really, really tough economic times. Hey, I should say GDP numbers came out on Monday, right? And about 33% of Nigerians are out of work. When you combine the unemployment and the underemployment rate, that number is about 56%, right? So it's a really, really tough time economically here for the vast majority of Nigerians. And people in that kind of economic environment will always try to look for whatever it is that would give them that advantage, right? And And that's where crypto really has, and that's why crypto, I should say, has found like a like a really 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 significant foothold, down here, just because everything else isn't working as it should, right?
Do you find that merchants are also accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment?
Okay, so merchants are kind of right. They're kind of at the back of the queue in terms of crypto adoption. It isn't always the case that you are trying to get stuff, say, from a vendor online, let alone a physical, business, or physical outlet, right? And you would see that you'd see clearly, right, that those businesses accept crypto, and that's kind of because um crypto in Nigeria is still seen as a store of value, as against like a mechanism for for moving and transmitting funds. So we only really use crypto here in Nigeria to to transfer wealth if we're trying to get it out of the country, and not exactly because we're trying to settle payments in the country. Nigeria has a and this is quite interesting for a developing country, but Nigeria has a pretty sophisticated payments and settlements, infrastructure, right? I mean, it's all denominated in naira, so um, so that structure, even though it's well developed, you can make transfers, right, to like vendors, um, um, cash is king in large parts of the economy, but especially in the urban areas, you can just get by with like making electronic payments, right? That's very common
Mhm.
now. But there's still that sense, because the value of transactions here in Nigeria, especially if they're denominated in dollars, are pretty small on average, right? There's still that sense that um, vendors are still learning sort of like the electronic naira adoption game, right? So it's best to give them some time before they make that crossover to crypto. And again, when it's really about value, right? And the store of value mechanism, and just the fact that transactions here are typically small. So my light bill, for example, I can pay for it online. So I consume about 35 to 40,000 naira, right, in electricity every month. That's a little under $200, right, as it were. So so that's pretty small. So if I want to pay for that with crypto, that would be like many decimal points, right, of like a single coin, right? Yeah. So and that's a huge transaction by Nigerian standards. 40,000 naira is a huge thing. It's like that's rent for lots of people. So yeah, so just the fact that current transactions are still are still denominated like in very small measures, are sort of put a lead on crypto adoption as a mechanism for payments. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's the same here, to be honest, as well. Not a lot of merchants accept Bitcoin at the moment in Australia. That is changing. We do have a pretty decent, I guess, yeah, banking system as well. But I think more and more merchants here are starting to adopt Bitcoin and various other cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. But yeah, also I agree with what you've just said then too, about it being more of a store of value. I think I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine today who's a developer, and we were discussing that the narrative sort of needs to change with Bitcoin. Instead of being like a peer-to-peer payment system, it actually should be more or labeled more as a store of value system rather than a like payment system. So I find that quite interesting
Yeah.
that people in Nigeria have actually been doing that for quite some time now. Um, I've read a fair few articles about the central bank in Nigeria also sort of starting to crack down now on people, giving access to people to, using cryptocurrencies and that sort of thing. How has that sort of affected, obviously people using cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in Nigeria?
Yeah. So kind of like the first thing to know is how the CBN went about doing it. So first, about I think it was 2 years ago or so, the the CBN came out with a guidance, right, on crypto in general, right? So Nigeria was going through this alternative investments craze, and that led to the sort of like the rise of Ponzi schemes, right, and pyramid type money investment schemes. And the CBN issued an advisory, you know, calling for for the general public to sort of be careful, right, with their you know, in their investment decision making. And it curiously included crypto, right, in that advisory, right. So that was sort of like the first warning sign of where policy thinking down here, right, was with respect to crypto. It was also worth noting, though, that when you situate the CBN's behavior within sort of like the global context of where regulatory thinking was around crypto like 2 years ago, it was far from an outlier, right? You had I think the US Fed was quiet about it, but it had a few central banks in the Middle East and in Europe, right? You know, talking about the potential pitfalls, right, of crypto. And you had a lot of people, right, in sort of the investment circles, right, in the West, and also in pockets of Asia, also concerned about, you know, how Bitcoin didn't operate as like every regular fiat currency, right, does. There's no clear regulator. While there is a control, you know, as to the distribution and creation mechanism, it wasn't clear that Bitcoin behaved largely in tandem with sort of like well-established economic doctrine. And so, you know, everyone was trying to figure out Bitcoin, right, back then. And the CBN was very much within its remit to do that. Fast forward to the end of last year, and a lot of things that changed in Nigeria, especially, you know, politically, right? So we had the SARS movement, which is sort of like the protest against police brutality here, more like our Black Lives Matter, you know, sort of equivalent. And lots of young Nigerians, you know, myself included, right, organized in ways that restricted the ability of government and sort of the regulators to shut us down. So lots of the donations streamed in from across the world via Bitcoin, right, you know, which was actually quite interesting. And, you know, would issue out these weekly financial reports that basically talked about the amount of donations that we received and sort of what we spent it on. And, you know, we always had a line item for Bitcoin, right, because people were, you know, donating in Bitcoin, right? And that alarmed the authorities. So I think up until October last year, the CBN was very comfortable with just turning an eye and issuing, you know, regulatory guidance, you know, sort of warning and cautioning people, right, as to the potential dangers of using crypto. But they saw with NSAS that, you know, crypto wasn't this ephemeral, abstract thing, right, that people were just using as a mechanism to just store money. Like, you could actually use it to settle payments. You know, people could transfer, you know, coins or bits of coins, right, across borders, and you could had them converted into naira or dollars and actually use them here on the ground to, you know, provide for feeding at protest grounds or help with legal aid for folks who were arrested right at this protest by the police, or help pay for legal fees for those who were actually charged to court, which was actually, you know, what we used these resources largely to do. And for the authorities, that was a non-starter. That wasn't something that they were going to tolerate. So the CBN went about dealing with this in sort of like a, you know, a very, this is almost borderline sinister way, right? So the CBN hasn't outlawed the use of Bitcoin in Nigeria. It's outlawed the transferability of it, right, into Naira. And it's mandated the banks here in Nigeria to temporarily block and suspend accounts that have been known to receive Bitcoin. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, right, for me, because, you know, when we when you consider it, like within the light of, the story I told you earlier about how I got into crypto, I didn't use my bank account, with it. I don't have a name attached to, any sort of digital signature indicating that I had used crypto, but I have used crypto in the past. I just used it using another person's bank account abroad. Yeah. So call me a prophet if you will, right? Or a seer if you will. But my bank accounts are still open. But for lots of Nigerians, this wasn't the case. So you've got banks, emailing people, and in some cases, not even communicating with their customers, right? You just find out you can log into your bank app or you can make transactions just because you had used your account to receive and sort of like convert coins into naira. And I should also say, this caught up with a lot of people who were part of sort of the end SARS movement, but had been using crypto for their own personal means. So it was a very calculated, in hindsight, very smart, but almost sinister way of restricting crypto use. And you are seeing crypto use inch down, right? Because not everyone is like me, where you could sort of have like a proxy abroad who could help you with your crypto investments. Many young Nigerians just used their bank accounts, right, to purchase bits or to purchase coins, right? So so it is quite interesting, right, how the CBN went about it. I should say it's been effective, but as with every regulatory bottleneck, Nigerians will find a go around it. I have heard of people, because Nigeria is part of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. It's kind of like a monetary trade union type thing. So more like the West African equivalent of the EU. And freedom of goods and freedom of the movement of goods and people, right, is guaranteed, right, under ECOWAS. So I know of people who have gone to Ghana, who have gone to Togo, who have gone to Benin, and opened bank accounts just so they can continue to have access to their alternative investment. You might see more of that happening. I could easily envisage a situation where banks in these countries begin to target Nigerians with sort of their marketing and their business expansion efforts, just in order to capture that crypto, because it is a huge market right down here. So that's kind of where we stand, right? It's a pretty awkward position to be in for sort of like the average retail crypto investor, but it's a regulatory bottleneck. People will find a way to deal with it.
Yeah, I could imagine people that are obviously that have probably been using Bitcoin for quite some time in Nigeria have have the will to try and work around it, which is obviously a good thing. What was the main reason that the banks decided that that's what they wanted to do? Were they just not happy with having not having control over how money was moving in and out of the country?
Yeah, it was largely that. We are control freaks in Nigeria. I don't know whether you could say the same about Australians, but we are control freaks here in Nigeria, and there is our approach to regulation, right, tends to center around whether regulators can have arbitrary, unilateral access to the assets under the regulatory purview when they want it, how they want it, and the fundamental nature of crypto made that nigh on impossible. I think the banks had largely been. I mean, up until the end of last year, the banks had largely, just gone along with the game because a lot of Nigerians were still routing, their investments through the financial system, and so in terms of bank charges and all of that, there was still an attractive proposition, right, for banks. But with the social movements which have been facilitated in part by crypto, that constituted, a step too far. right? For sort of like the regulatory authorities, and the banks down here don't push back, right? As a general rule, just because our institutions here are still developing, and you could have a regulator who, for the flimsiest reason, withdraws a license, right, or makes it, nigh on impossible for you to carry on business here, right? And so, in many respects, especially when it comes to the CBN's relationship with the banks, right, it's very much an autocratic father to his kids, a kind of relationship, right? And so there wasn't any opportunity for them to push back. I mean for the average bank trying to do that, authority type figures would simply just style you as working against the interests of Nigeria, because that was kind of the narrative, right, that the government styled the SARS movement in. It was, anti-Nigerian. These guys were sowers of chaos and destruction, and disunity and subversion, right? And as a business operating in an environment like this, you don't want to be the guy who is seen as facilitating those kind of subversive social movements, right? And so that was the angle and some of the approach. So it's just like my colleagues and I even went as far once when we were talking about this to thinking that the government was just looking for the perfect excuse to clamp down on crypto, and we kind of gave them that with using it during NSARS. So yeah, because just the speed with which the CBN moved, right, to restrict bank accounts, right, not just of those who transacted in sort of like regular naira, dollar, pounds, Canadian dollars, right, with their bank accounts that were known to have facilitated payments, for and during the protest, but also those that use crypto, right? So there are two sets of accounts that that were largely restricted because of NSARS, and crypto was like a key pillar, right, of their strategy, and just the speed with which they moved, just kind of made one wonder if they hadn't one they hadn't had this in mind for a while, and they were just waiting for the perfect logical excuse to make that happen. So yeah, the banks were kind of backed up into a corner, and there wasn't a lot they could do to kind of stop the regulator from not carrying out the regulator's wishes. So that's that gives us cause for worry. At my organization, at SBM, we have been apprehensive for a while, right, around what the CBN would do concerning foreign currency denominated accounts, right, that housed in Nigerian banks for a while. We've been saying for a while that the government, in its hunt to get access to as much dollars as it can, would move towards restricting the use of dollar and pound and euro denominated accounts here in Nigeria. And it has done that, right? Just last week, it came out with a scheme where for every dollar that is transferred using the official market, you'd get 5 naira deposited in your Nigerian account. And when you do the math, that's about like about 0.0 to the fourth ratio, right? And $12, right, for every naira. It doesn't make economic sense, right? Yeah, but they're trying everything within their arsenal to tinker with these markets, right? And crypto wasn't going to be an exception, right? If they're going to do this with sort of bread and butter currency markets, then crypto won't be an exception, and that's kind of the risk, right, of investing in markets, right, like Nigeria. We're not exactly unique, right, in that regard. We might sort of be at the leading edge in terms of clamping down on these things. So that's something for everyone who's watching and listening to watch, especially when you're trying to tie up like transactions with Nigerian crypto users.
Yeah. So a lot of the I guess the reasons that you just sort of said that Central Bank of Nigeria has decided to try and make it quite difficult for people to obviously purchase crypto in Nigeria is all sort of linked back to this NSARS, like I guess, social movement. Is that sort of correct?
It is very correct. You know, and SARS provided the clearest justification, right, about how crypto could be used in ways that didn't sit in tandem with, you know, sort of like the government's general interest, right? And I mean, during NSARS, it was, people had their accounts, you know, blocked and restricted, right? But with crypto, especially for users, for, you know, for Nigerians who are in the diaspora, right? You know, crypto transactions were happening, and those folks were using their foreign currency denominated accounts to settle, you know, NSARS related transactions. I had a friend in New York, right, who we had to route, you know, payments for legal fees through, right, because we couldn't do it down here, right, in Lagos. Yeah, so and you know, that largely happened because of crypto, right? You know, so he had a dollar denominated account. He, you know, he's also into crypto, right? And you know, so we just told folks on social media to route, you know, their crypto donations to him, you know, and he was able to facilitate you know, these payments for us. So that was kind of like a workaround we used. And you know, the CBN is used to restricting accounts for political, you know, or reasons other than economic, right, down here in Nigeria, but they couldn't quite do that with crypto, right? Yeah, so what they ended up doing was to sort of block the receiving Nigerian end of things, and then hope that that kind of severs us from sort of like the wider global crypto market. And you know, like I said earlier, it's working for the most part, yeah, but you know, the doors aren't completely shut yet, and I think that crypto users down here will, you know, will find a workaround. There's this thing that we do, right? I just use this as sort of like an illustration of where, you know, where crypto use in Nigeria might be headed. So there's this thing we do sort of like here in Nigeria as kind of like a workaround to, you know, the multiple exchange rate charges and the multiple exchange rates and charges, and you know, and all of that. So what we do is, if you're sitting in Perth, right?
Yep, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. So you're in Perth. I'm in Lagos. You want to send me money. So how it works is, I'd give you sort of like the bank account details or the number of a friend or family or, you know, a trusted contact of mine who's there in Perth with you.
Mm-hmm.
You do a transfer to them. When they acknowledge it, right, I do a transfer to the Nigerian account of that contact, right? And we know we're even. And, you know, and so all we need to do is sort of just agree on what our best exchange rate would be from, you know, Australian dollar to Naira, right? And, you know, I just transfer the Nigerian equivalent, you know, right to them. I can easily imagine a similar scenario, right, with crypto, you know. So if we can't participate directly because of regulatory hassles, we could do that, you know. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it adds to the cost of transactions. You know, there could be delays if I don't find anyone in Perth, for example, that could facilitate that end of the transaction. And it's just more stressful, right, than to just, you know, do like a direct debit or credit. But it is a way around things, right? And we have tons of experience doing that with, you know, sort of like, you know, regular currencies. So I can't imagine that in a growth market like crypto, we wouldn't be looking at, you know, sort of like similar mechanisms, you know, to have access to our investments. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Would you mind talking a little bit about NSARS? Are you happy to chat about that?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Without,
Just
by all means.
Yeah, just to elaborate, I guess like uh, to give some clarity to the viewers on, what it's like socially in Nigeria. Maybe if you can give a bit of a backstory on NSARS and then obviously chat about, the movement itself and what you guys are like hoping to accomplish with that.
Okay, great. So SARS stands for the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. I was going to say it still is a thing, right? So it is a unit of the Nigerian police force, which was created in the early 90s to deal with like a rising spate of armed robberies and kidnappings. First in Lagos, but it was expanded to the rest of the country by 1996, right? So what happened was in the late 80s to the early 90s, Lagos was really, 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 really unsafe. Like armed robberies were happening in the boatloads on a daily basis. I was born here in the late 80s, and so I kind of grew up in that environment where um, there were days when you couldn't go to school because it was like armed robberies were happening in broad daylight, right? And you'd hear announcements on the radio, as to, at some point we're having armed robbery announcements on the radio the way the weather forecast is provided, right, on the news, and it was just crazy. And the police then at the time were hamstrung and generally incapable of dealing with this. These guys were better armed, better resourced, they had better vehicles, and in some cases, there were allegations that they have political cover, right? Take note, by this time Nigeria is still a military dictatorship, right? So we're still under military rule. And there was only so much the soldiers could do. There was a time a military barracks was actually attacked by these guys. So it was really, really brazen. It was a very, very terrible time, right, to sort of be a Nigerian from a security perspective. And what policymakers thought at the time, right, was that the legal and the constitutional constraints, right, on the police in terms of, how they had to apprehend suspects and prosecutions and charging them to court, right, um, made the police, stand at a disadvantage, at a disadvantage with respect to these guys. So what they needed was a police unit that could operate, that could think, that could behave, the way these guys behaved. And so SARS was born. These guys were given sort of like the latest in, weaponry and gadgetry at the time, right? They weren't mandated to wear police uniforms. They had carte blanche to pick up anyone that is suspected, right, of having been involved or aided or abetted, right, armed robbery, and they were largely successful. They were able to deal with these guys. It took a lot of gun and blood, right? So there were lots of shootouts, right, between robbery gangs and armed gangs and the police. Which again contributed to sort of like the general climate of instability. But after a while, by the mid 1990s, right, the sector of armed robbery had largely been dealt with. But the unit still existed, right? And so what happened was, in the absence of armed gangs, right, these units just turned on, anyone and everyone, right? And especially for young Nigerians, they became a favored target, right, of these units. And so you could be in a taxi, right? I had an experience where I was in an Uber on my way home. I think this was about 3 years ago, and I was late at night. We got stopped. I got pulled over. I had to explain who I was, what I did, where I was coming from. My bags were searched. They saw a laptop, which is always a red flag because, what happened in Nigeria was, we kind of substituted armed robbery, or sort of like the criminal elements substituted armed robbery for, for internet fraud, right? Which is kind of what we're largely known for now globally. Yeah, and so the remit of these units were retooled to sort of find and catch, right, internet fraudsters down here. But that meant that every young Nigerian who wore jeans and sort of had a tattoo, or braided their hair and had a computer and drove a good car, right, or was able to afford an Uber, because not many Nigerians can afford Uber, must be doing something interesting online. So yeah, so police profiling just shot through the roof, and there were lots of incidents of people being arbitrarily arrested, disappeared for months on end, and killed, right? I had friends who were victims of this. There was a friend, for example, this is an interesting story. So one of the notorious SARS units in the southeast of the country, right, which was the unit whose activities was broadcast on that video that originally led to the protest, caught a friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, and he was disappeared for months and months on end. Like, we had no idea where he was. He had gotten involved in sort of like bad company, so we kind of felt maybe he was killed, like kind of in a shootout or something. And we're actually organizing his burial, so we're kind of preparing for his burial. And his father gets a phone call early in the morning from a Supreme Court justice saying, "Oh, we found your son. He's in the forest somewhere in Southeast Nigeria. Can you go get him?" It was crazy, and this was early last year. It was like early 2020. Yeah. So you had really, really crazy stories like that around kind of like the behavior of these SARS units. They became virtually independent of the police. They were ungovernable. Channels of responsibility and accountability were practically severed. The police force had tried banning them, or ostensibly said publicly that it had banned them at least 4 times since 2014, but they still operated. So it was really, really crazy, right? And then, the video of that young man, right, in Delta State in Nigeria's southwest showed up, and and it was a straw, too far, right, for most people. So that's how we ended up with the protests and sort of like the movement, which channeled the energies and sort of like the organizational savvy of the Black Lives Matter movement. Not like there was a direct connection, but it was BLM was kind of like an inspiration, right, for young Nigerians in terms of of what the approach to protesting would be, the messaging online and sort of like in traditional media which ignored us for like the first couple of days before they got the message, and kind of like the organizational and the the logistical angle. So during the protest, we realized like as Nigerians, right, that these large groups of people need to be fed, need to be entertained, need to be taken care of, right? And so you had a situation where young Nigerians that had catering services volunteered to cook, and they volunteered for a couple of days, and then we decided, okay, this is too much work. We need to pay you for this, because in Lagos, for example, there were 5 protest sites, and you could easily have had 5 to 10,000 people per site, right? And this went on for 13 days, right, in October. So sort of like from early to mid October, and these were well organized protests. We had food, we had drinks, we had games, people played soccer, football, there were activities, and we had the protests as well, of course. So yeah, it was something like we've never seen, right? Like, in protest in Nigeria, often is code for people carrying sticks and sort of guns and machetes and like improvised explosive devices, and go around town looting and breaking off stuff, right? This was different, right? And even though you had like local gangs who then took advantage of the fact that we're all in protest mode to carry out aforesaid looting and arson, they were largely peaceful protests until they were shut down on the 20th of October in like you probably know the Lekki toll gate massacre, right? And so that's kind of, where we were, where we are now. There are still lots of people who are in police detention and custody, people who have been charged to court, right? So the movement still exists. We're still, paying legal fees, trying to get people bailed out, and still having that, conversation around, what to do to end police brutality in this country, right? 27 of Nigeria's 36 states set up judicial panels of inquiry, unprecedented, right, in Nigeria's history. Those panels haven't done right as well as we would like them to, but they are a step kind of in the right direction. That conversation is still happening. And the authorities are very, very sensitive to that fact, right? And so, this hasn't ended for us, just as it hasn't ended for them, right? And that's why you are seeing, those policy restrictions like, what you have with crypto, right? It intermittently occur. So that's kind of, what NSAS was about, and kind of, like where we are, and, sort of like the post-NSAS environment in Nigeria, what we've kind of done.
Wow. Very interesting story. I honestly had no idea about NSAS before you just explained it to me then. All we sort of see in the media here about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency being banned in Nigeria is literally just that the Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to ban people from, being able to basically put Nigerian Naira into the Bitcoin system, or take Bitcoin out and convert it into Nigerian Naira. But they don't really suggest any reasons as to why. So that's very interesting to hear. Obviously, like part of the backstory from someone that's on the ground that's actually dealt with what's happening there. Thank you for obviously talking about NSARS. It's been an eye-opening. Is there anything else you wanted to add onto the conversation? We've kind of been chatting for about 40 odd minutes now, but if there's anything else you wanted to add, I'd greatly appreciate it, and I'd certainly be interested to obviously hear what you have to say.
All right. So what I would say is crypto is far from dead, so kind of in Nigeria. So I know that the headlines kind of like coming out of here are very concerning, right? To sort of like the alternative investor, especially folks who have Nigerian people sort of like at the end of some transactions that they've closed in the past. It's far from it. It's far from over down here. So do not feel uncomfortable looking for ways and avenues to sort of help the Nigerian ends of transactions, right? Close. There are still interesting things that that are happening sort of like in the wider Nigerian payment space, in financial payments, right? For example, which is really big down here. Stripe, the American payments processor, acquired a Nigerian payments processor, Paystack, right? Actually, during NSARS, that actually got announced during NSARS, right? So Paystack is this Nigerian payments processor, which actually, lots of online transactions, right, get settled through them, right? And just last week, Flutterwave, which is sort of like another Nigerian payment player, closed its latest round of funding, and it's now a unicorn. So that's our second payments unicorn. We've already had one before, InterSwitch, which is sort of like in the era of 2021 feels like a fossil, even though they were founded, I think, around about 2013 or 2012. Thereabouts. So there are interesting things happening in Nigeria. There are investors that are still looking at this market. It's a growth market. Almost 70% of Nigerians are younger than me. I'm in my early 30s, right? So that's a huge population bulge, a huge consumption bulge, right? Which is imminent, and lots of those Nigerians, right, are into crypto, right? They are studying crypto. They are getting into crypto. They are trying to understand alternative mechanisms, and so you don't want to miss out on that action, right? Which is imminent. It is happening and it is imminent at the same time, right? So Nigeria presents lots of present and future growth opportunities, right? That like you shouldn't allow, kind of like the regulatory conversation that's kind of prevalent now to distract you from. It would require a little more patience. It would require you doing a bit more homework, but I can assure you it's well worth it. So do not do not do not lose out on us, right? And always, always, always bet on Nigeria.
Yeah. Are you aware of many projects in Nigeria that are, looking to, I guess, jump on board, I guess, the crypto industry? So, like, for example, I've been reading a little bit about a project called Extend Finance, which seems to be, I'm not sure if it's run by a Nigerian gentleman himself, but in their white paper they mention, African countries sort of tend to almost have their own what's the word, like credit unions, I guess. So like they get a bunch of individuals together who will all sort of contribute to a bit of a pool as like a savings account or something like that. And then that pool itself, obviously, they either invest that money into something that they think's going to be a profitable investment, or they keep the money in a savings account. Are you aware of any projects in Nigeria like either similar to that, or just crypto based in general?
I should say that that kind of financial pooling is very common right here. As a matter of fact, in most Nigerian languages, it's got a name, right? Sort of like the popular one here in Lagos in Yoruba is Ajo, right? It's kind of what it's called, right? So, there are lots of projects that kind of happen in that space. I haven't yet seen one that has gone live for crypto, but again, this harks back to sort of like the, what I was talking about earlier in terms of coping mechanisms. This could very well, be a common behavior in sort of like the crypto space, like later in the year, towards the end of the year. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that are thinking along those lines, because, it's sort of like in more brick and mortar currency spaces, you've got lots of businesses, you've got lots of product offerings, right, that encompass that model, right? So
Yeah, awesome. Look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been very eye-opening. Before you go, where can people find you? Are you on any social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, any of that sort of stuff?
I am on all social media platforms, right? So I am on Instagram, I am on Twitter at George Ike, George as a court George, and then Ike with a Y, so an IYKE. Yeah, and I am on Facebook as well. Worth checking out in order to understand Nigeria better. My organization's social media platforms, and we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, right, at SBM Intelligence. So SBM and then Intelligence in full, right? So
I will link that in the description below. So thank you so much for your time, Ikemesit. I appreciate it.
brilliant. Thanks for having me, Rian. Do take care.
Take care.
I will. Bye.